There's no denying that the past couple years of PlayStation press conferences have been exciting for fans. Sony has surprised the gaming world by announcing several games that fans thought would never see the light of day, showed off upcoming sequels and key franchises, and have had some of the best showings in recent memories. Sony have turned their press conferences into historic moments, ones that gamers have to tune into. The bar has essentially been raised by PlayStation, but these sort of announcements are a double-edged sword. While they do produce a lot of excitement in the moment, they can end up producing disappointment in the long run. It's become sadly common for a game to steal the show at one press conference and then miss the next one entirely. High-profile titles like The Last Guardian, Agent, and Final Fantasy VII Remake have all but disappeared into the ether for long periods of time, with some never making it out. In order to not have a repeat of this, Sony will have to continually give updates on games going forward. Not only will this help their games build momentum, but it'll also ease a fan base that is prone to worrying. With all that out of the way, here's 10 Sony E3 2017 games that need to appear at the PlayStation press conference if they hope to steal the show and keep their fans from feeling like their announcements are vaporware. Despite being one of the very first PlayStation 4 games announced, not much is known about Capcom's free-to-play action RPG, Deep Down. Ever since it was announced in 2013, Capcom has essentially gone radio silent as a planned public beta never came to fruition. It's well past time for an update, and finally showing off more of the Yoshinori Ono-produced game would be appreciated by its fanbase. Another game that PlayStation gamers have been acquainted with since 2013 is Media Molecule's Dreams. Originally shown as a tech demo, Dreams was officially announced 2 years later at E3 2015. The sandbox creation tool builds upon what the studio did with Little Big Planet, and not much has been said about the game since it was recently delayed from 2016 to this year. The PlayStation Move-supported game looks like a natural fit for PlayStation VR, and if marketed correctly at this year's E3, it could become Sony's VR killer app.
Long ago, we looked upon a foreboding sky.
There's never been a more anticipated remake than Square Enix's upcoming PS4 version of Final Fantasy VII, so maybe it's not surprising that the news has been light. There's a lot riding on this project for the Japanese publisher, and it'll end up being a gigantic hit if it can live up to the hype. Since the game didn't have an E3 2016 presence, it can't afford to go 2 years without being on the biggest stage for games. Gamers are eager to see more of the redone Gaia, and yet another absent year would only serve to spread doubt and fear among Final Fantasy fanatics. In 2015, Sony helped debut a Kickstarter for the sequel to the legendary Shenmue franchise. After raising a crazy amount of dough, the game entered active development. Not a ton has been revealed about the Yu Suzuki-directed title so far, and fans online are increasingly starting to doubt that it'll hit its target release date of December 2017. That's a major blow to the poster child of Sony's Building the List initiative, but some much-needed communication at E3 could go a long way towards smoothing over any potential fan frustration. If a delay is imminent, it'd be smart for Sony and Sega to announce the heavily rumored remastered versions of the first 2 Shenmue games at E3 2017. It's been nearly 1 year since Sony announced they were publishing Hideo Kojima's first game since leaving Konami, and the result of his creative madness is called Death Stranding. Past trailers have featured Norman Reedus holding a baby and Mads Mikkelsen having no idea what he was doing. Kojima isn't one to rush his projects though, which means that the game was likely announced several years before players will get a release date. So far, players have no clue how Death Stranding will play, let alone what's going on with the game's plot. Will any of this become clear at E3? If the prior trailers are anything to go by, probably not. But Sony needs to continue pushing the game now that they've let the genie out of the bottle.
What are we hunting?
You are hunting deer.
Sony typically doesn't take chances with its established franchises, but Sony Santa Monica's new God of War takes the character action game in an interesting new direction. The camera's gone from a distant view to a behind-the-shoulder perspective, and the series' iconic Greek mythology has been replaced with a Norse setting. It looks to be a drastically different playing game that has a new attitude, as Kratos' son was the star of last year's E3 reveal. Expect to get a ton of new details as Sony is banking on this reimagining to be a system seller. Typically, the biggest gaming announcements of the year are left for E3. But Sony bucked the trend in 2016 by delivering a showstopper at December's PlayStation Experience event. This, of course, was the announcement that Naughty Dog would be taking yet another crack at The Last of Us, their highly successful 2013 release. They repeatedly noted that the game was still in early stages, so getting any sort of release date or live gameplay demo seems highly unlikely, but Sony will at least have to show another trailer at E3.
And I'm gonna kill every last one of them.
No pressure, right?
One of E3 2016's biggest surprises was that Sony, Marvel, and Insomniac Games teamed up for an all-new Spider-Man game for PlayStation 4. Considering how much fun Insomniac's Sunset Overdrive was, it quickly became one of the system's most anticipated games. Sadly, there hasn't been any news about the game since then. Expect Spidey to have a big showing at Sony's press conference, as any additional radio silence would have fans starting to go crazy.
Hello, planet Earth. I'm Eva Tyson, and joining me is one of my colleagues, Dr. Grant.
2017 will be a key year for PlayStation VR, and will likely determine if the virtual headset will be a success on PlayStation 4. The device has sold well for Sony so far, as they've been slowly upping the production to meet demand. But beyond the wow factor of affordable VR, there simply aren't a lot of major releases coming later this year. Sony will have to change that if they want to make a bigger splash in the VR space. If they can announce a few full-fledged games as exciting as the recently released Farpoint, then PlayStation VR owners will be more than happy. Due to Sony's habit of announcing games incredibly early, they likely won't have many big surprises up their sleeves. They do have one, however, and that comes in the form of a new game by infamous developer Sucker Punch. This is Sony's one big shot at truly shocking the show, and it can make a good, yet predictable press conference into an unforgettable one. Well, there you have it. 10 games that Sony needs to show at E3 2017. What games do you think they need to show? What are you most excited to see? Leave it down in the comments below. And subscribe to COGconnected for all things gaming.